It's time to clean the winter blues out of your house. You should really check out Greenland Pro Cleaning. They're locally owned in Asheville, they're eco-friendly, allergy-friendly, and they only use products certified by the EPA. Greenland Pro Cleaning has easy online booking, and you can get a quote in under a minute. Use the code OVERLOOK at checkout and get $60 off your first cleaning. Cross spring cleaning off your to-do list by visiting greenlandprocleaning.com today. You can't just have a TV and stereo anymore. Now they're part of fully automated, energy-efficient smart homes. The good news, if you live in or around Asheville, Robbie Matrani of REM Audio and Video has you covered. REM offers an array of sound, video, lighting, security, and network services, all controllable at your fingertips from anywhere. REM is a registered dealer for all the major brands and can customize a plan for any budget. Get a free quote by reaching out at remAudiovideo.com.
I am a maker, a builder, a baker, although sometimes my messes are all that you'll find. I'll tell a story, both true and allegory. Oh, the process is precious, so it takes up all my time.
70 years ago, Black Mountain College was a petri dish for experimental art, sound, and performance. It was also the birthplace of so-called happenings, events where practitioners strive to transcend the bounds of existence and expression. Today, the Black Mountain College Museum and Arts Center throws an annual Rehappening. The 12th Rehappening is April 20th. Artists who embody the ethos of old are descending on the former college campus at Lake Eden for a day and night of hard-to-define experiences.
I love switching it back and forth, like taking things outside, doing site-specific work outdoors, and then also bringing nature in.
Our tagline is make stuff for fun and creating opportunities for people to gather.
This is The Overlook with Matt Peiken, a podcast about the news, arts, issues, and trends of Asheville, North Carolina. Today, we preview Rehappening with separate conversations, one with Asheville performance artist Claire Elizabeth Barratt, and the other with one of the founders of a Swannanoa-centered creative collective called Swannatopia. You'll find both performing at Rehappening 12. We'll talk about what they're bringing to Lake Eden and how they've built lives and communities in the arts. Claire Elizabeth Barratt is rooted in the world of dance, but her performance art also encompasses music, multimedia, and theater. Her central project over the past several years has been converting her North Asheville home into an arts center called the Center for Connection and Collaboration. I began my conversation with Claire by asking her to describe the local performance art scene when she was part of the first Rehappening in 2009.
There was quite a lot of stuff going on. Jean Felice was one of the main instigators of the Rehappening, and that was through MAP, the Media Arts Project. And they, even though they're primarily about media arts, they were very much about collaboration. The Buto scene here was really hot. There was a lot of workshops and performances in the Buto Festival, and that, again, was an expanded performative scene with live music. And so there were things going on in the River Arts District, especially at Phil Mechanic.
Really?
Building.
I didn't know there was a performance scene happening at the Phil Mechanic building.
There were artists that were using that space because Jolene was very interested in having performance there. So I had done some stuff there.
Who's Jolene?
Jolene Mechanic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was she and her husband who were running that space at the time. And the way that I had actually got involved in the Rehappening in the first place was through a media arts project event that was happening at the Phil Mechanic building. And they had some kind of setup there that was interactive, like a video interactive thing where if you moved, there'd be a sensor and it would trigger some light and video.
How long had you been in Asheville by the time Rehappening started?
I had been in Asheville earlier in the late 90s, and I'd been working with Asheville Contemporary Dance Theatre for a couple of years then. And then I went to New York in the early 2000s and founded Sylvie Life Arts in New York, and then started coming back to Asheville, going back and forth around 2008 or so.
Why did you come back here? You were having a thriving career in New York. You were already touring a lot of places. You were more of a touring artist, even at that point, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. I had started touring quite a bit. And New York was expensive, basically, and it was just really difficult to keep your head above water. And my parents had a house here in Asheville, and they would go back and forth between Asheville and the UK, where they're from. So sometimes the house would be empty, sometimes they would rent it out. So a lot of the time I would come when the house was empty, and then I was just here more and more and getting involved in what was going on here and finding out that there was some like really super interesting artists. And also the Asheville Fringe Festival was really picking up around then as well. There was another dance and sculpture event going on at the River Sculpture Festival, which happened for a few years around that time. So there was a lot going on.
Wow. In some ways, was there more going on than there is now in terms of the Media Arts Project doesn't exist anymore? Did you feel, when in retrospect, that there was more experimentation and more people just testing the boundaries of things back then, 10, 20 years ago, than there are now?
I think it was definitely more of a kind of experimental scene. And a lot of those people are still here and still doing their thing. I think also the pandemic made people go into isolation a little bit more. Also, I mean, we're all just a little bit older. We're not out every night, you know.
So you think it's a combination of the pandemic and aging that has just kind of sidelined us?
I don't know. But I feel like what's up and coming, there's good work. But I feel like some of the things that maybe were in experimental stages have become a little bit more institutionalized now, which is the nature of things. If you're onto a good thing and you want to keep it going, you have to institutionalize it to a certain extent.
What do you mean by institutionalize it?
Like, just sit down and say, okay, what's this thing about? These are our rules and regs about what we consider this thing is and isn't. And then it's going to happen in this time of year, and then this is how it happens. And there's wiggle room inside that for things to change, but there's kind of ways of modus operandi that have been set. But usually there's some other bubble of chaotic experimentation coming from somewhere else by that point. And I think that is happening here. I feel like it's maybe smaller and not exploding out into the whole scene. Asheville's got bigger. There's more people here anyway. So it's a little harder for things to get noticed in that way, maybe. Speaking
of institutionalizing things, you've created your own institution, in a sense, with your parents' house.
Yeah, Center for Connection and Collaboration.
Yeah. When did you first get designs on that house becoming a performing arts center?
It's always been in the back of my mind because I've always wanted to have a space to curate work and have community come and be active creatively. And I've been involved in a couple of spaces like that previously, but this one, it's my actual home.
Yeah, I wanted just to summarize for people. There is a yard, like a typical yard, where you have some performance and you'll do some installation. You have a garage that you have turned into a performance space that can seat maybe 15 or so people. And you'll have the door open sometimes so people can watch from the outside as well as being inside.
Yeah.
And you have the house itself, which a large portion of it is now dedicated. There's a costume shop in there. There's a small floor, like the living room's been converted. It could be a dance space. Am I portraying this accurately?
Yeah, yes. And also there is a piano, which makes a huge difference. In the living room studio, there's a piano which opens up possibilities musically as well, because my mother used to be a singing and piano teacher.
And you do a lot of programming at the center now. I get your newsletters. There seems to be a regular flow of activities happening.
Oh, yeah. There's been a ton of stuff. I guess it was about 3 years ago that I really started the renovations. Like, as soon as the space was renovated, I would start having events in it, even if the rest of it wasn't renovated yet, just to really get the ball rolling and get things happening in there. So it's really been about 3 years now that I've been producing events there pretty solidly, and then other people have been coming in to use the space. And it's really just all kinds of stuff. I'm just saying creatives of all kind, because it doesn't even necessarily have to be the arts per se. It could be activism, it could be sciences, it could be a lot of different things that are approached in a creative and collaborative way.
Yeah, and it's also been, correct me if I'm wrong here, a laboratory for your own work.
Yes.
So are you using that to shape what you're going to do at Rehappening? Talk about that.
I am actually, this year, I am stepping back from producing a bunch of community events myself, because I feel like I've done enough to get the ball rolling now, and then other people can come in and use the space. And now you finally really is going to be starting to use my own space for my own work. It is the home of Sylvie Life Arts, my arts organization. So I am going to be using the space to create the installation that I'll be presenting at Rehappening.
And it's a new piece that you're going to be doing.
Yeah, it's a new piece. The title of it is The Rhizomatic Collective Unconscious Dreamcatcher. And it is actually part of a whole series of work that I've been doing for many years that I call the Raw Material series, based on the philosophy of human body in relationship with nature, human body becoming nature body, and draws on the idea of some mythologies, especially like in Ovid's Metamorphoses, where the human body transforms into nature body.
You said this is part of a series.
Yeah.
Did you envision this series in its totality when you first conceived it, or has it emerged in layers as you've produced and created more work? It's, here's something else I want to do in this.
Yeah, it's very much presented itself. The next stages have always evolved out from the previous.
Yeah, talk about the connecting thread that you tie from piece 1 to piece 2 and so on. What has led you from one piece to the next?
First of all, it was really a series of investigations while I was doing my MFA project and creating a pedagogy for performance art. And these were kind of experiments, investigations, explorations that I was setting for myself as exercises, like a year of responding to nature materials in the environment in different places in the world where I was in different seasons. And so that was very much a response to, for example, like harvest time in Nottinghamshire in England, responding to the wheat that was growing in the fields, responding to the elderberries growing, and things like that. So it was a very direct response of my body to nature bodies. And then that evolved over time to actually creating pieces and installations. The last one that I did was last summer in New York. I had an installation at the Port Authority bus terminal for a month that was called Rewilding the Body. And so I built a whole nature environment, and the dances were nature bodies inside that environment, like water bodies, earth bodies. And the previous explorations really informed how I went about doing that.
What I think is interesting, a lot of artists will perform elements in nature outside and bring their audiences to those and do site-specific pieces. you're bringing nature inside. Talk about the challenge of that, what you're hoping to recreate from the outside, to bring from the outside in and keep alive. And what do you sacrifice by trying to bring what you find as an external inspiration, nature, and how your body reacts to it? What's the challenge of trying to do that in a man-made space?
I love switching it back and forth, like taking things outside, doing site-specific work outdoors, and then also bringing nature in. The challenge with bringing nature in mostly is very practical. It's like bringing enough stuff inside to really create that full, lush kind of nature environment. And in some cases, that might not be necessary. You can just bring in a couple of just beautifully shaped pieces, and they will just create a very stark presence or beautiful presence in the space. But if you're really wanting to bring that full nature environment in, it's like carloads of stuff back and forth. I did that here in Asheville one time for an Earth Day performance, and that was through the Black Mountain College Museum as well. It was the year when they were not doing the rehappening, but they were doing a whole month of what they were calling interludes in different spaces downtown. So that was kind of a precursor to the rewilding project at Port Authority, was the Earth Day, where we had a full 24 hours in the space, being part of a nature environment that had been brought in.
At rehappening this time, are you going to be outdoors or indoors?
I'm going to be outdoors. My dream catcher is going to be hanging from the tree that is on the island in the middle of the lake. And I have been looking at that island for years, and I have known that I have wanted to do something there. And I knew that it would one day present itself to me what it should be, and I wasn't going to just claim the island just for the sake of the site and not have something that really felt like it should be there and nowhere else. So I was waiting for the thing that was saying, I need to be on the island, and the dream catcher definitely is it.
So we're all going to be watching from a distance on the shore.
Yeah, you can actually come close to, there's a bridge, but it's going to be in two stages, like the daytime stage and the nighttime stage. So the daytime stage will be more interactive, so audience can come and get involved with weaving the dream catcher. But at nighttime, then it's going to be just completely performative. It's not going to be interactive. The audience will be watching more from a distance, and it will be lit at night, so it will be nice to be able to stand on the shore and look out at the island and see this kind of white dream catcher hanging in the light from the tree. And also, I will be working with some volunteer students from Warren Wilson who are going to help me assemble the work and hopefully do some of the interactive movement as well earlier in the day.
Okay. Lastly, you said that you have finally the CCC has got its own legs and people who can program and do things there. Does that mean you're going back on tour soon? And because mostly up until relatively recently, we couldn't see you very often performing in Asheville because you're touring all over the place. You'd have a couple of performances in Asheville every year, it seemed. And now you're doing a little more. What's ahead for you?
Yeah, I will be touring again. The Dreamcatcher is going to be touring because I really would have a vision for developing it as a community project. And I think having a trial run of it being interactive, the rehappening will be a nice way to gauge how to approach turning it into a community project. So I have a couple of bookings already for that. There's also a music project that I'm going to be touring at the same time. It's a collaboration with the musician Tom Law. He used to run Conundrum Music Space in Columbia, South Carolina, and now he's moved up to Saugerties, New York. My tour with the Dreamcatcher is going to be going up north So I thought I would try and seize on the opportunity at the same time to combine it with this project that Tom and I have been cooking up. We're both into early music like Renaissance and Baroque music, and we're also both into noise music. So we're going to combine the two and take some early music songs and turn them into noise.
And are you performing a dance piece to this music, or are you performing the music?
I'm going to be
singing.
Yeah, I'm going to be singing. But I will also turn it into kind of performance art as well, taking some of the motifs from the Baroque theater style. So I will be doing some kind of theatrical stuff with it too.
I hope you get to bring that to Asheville.
Yeah, well, definitely. He's going to be here and we'll be doing some recording for a couple of days so that we've actually got some video and some sound samples to send out to get bookings. So I don't think we'll do an actual performance while he's here because we'll be recording, but we will do it at some point for sure.
More after this. In her youth, Anna Sagel saw herself as a hippie child, but as she bounced around Europe with her parents, she unwittingly developed the sensibilities that have paved her career.
I flew down to Guatemala with $1,000 in my pocket and traveled on the bus. Basically, it started with all Guatemalan merchandise, shirts, backpacks, belts, hacky sacks, you name it, all things bright and beautiful. And that was the beginning of Ad Lib.
Sagel opened Ad Lib Clothing 35 years ago in Boone and moved her boutique to Asheville at a time when there wasn't much else downtown.
Trends come and go. I feel like my customer wants clothes that she is going to enjoy today and they're going to last and she will enjoy them for years to come.
Drop into Ad Lib Clothing on Haywood Street, celebrate the shop's anniversary all through April, and find out why Anna Sagel isn't slowing down, even after 35 years.
It still amazes me that Ad Lib has become my life and that it has brought so much joy to so many women, and ad libbing it has worked for me.
Madalyn Wofford was primarily interested in painting when she first arrived as a student at Warren Wilson College. Her canvases soon became theatrical sets and also her friends' bodies. The community underpinning it all led to the creative collaborative called Swannatopia. I began my conversation with Madalyn by asking about her first artistic experiments at Warren Wilson.
I was a painter, and through my time at Warren Wilson, I got more into video and made a lot of performance art related videos that involved painting, the act of painting, more so than painting on a canvas. So I'd paint on my friends, or I'd paint sets and do little movies.
Was this just to experiment, or did you have a greater vision that you were starting to see out in your work that you wanted to express beyond canvas?
I think I was trying to capture more concepts. I had gotten really into reading Baudelaire and had gone abroad and came back and just was filled with process-oriented making and exploring, committing to a certain process, no matter whether it was exploring a new medium or just an idea.
Were you about experience as much as what manifested visually?
Yes. I guess that kind of comes from always hosting parties and loving to put a party together. And so a lot of the experiences I was creating were for other people. And I think that carries through in collaboration, working with other folks, but also making pieces that are for participants to be involved in.
Yeah, from what I gather when I've combed through Swannatopia's material, that it's a collaborative, but that the work that's being done is as much about the participants' experience and expression as it is about anything an audience would take away from that. Is that a fair description?
Yes. Yeah, it's very group conscious oriented.
Yeah. When did you start seeing collaborative arts as something that was fertile for you, that spoke to you?
During my time at Wilson, we had an amazing teacher who actually is very involved in the BB Theater. Julie Gillum would teach performance art classes, and she introduced the whole world to me and a lot of my fellow students. And so weird stuff was always going on. Happenings were happening at Warren Wilson. And yeah, I guess that's where it all began. And after college, I moved away to New Mexico for a little bit and came back because community was ripe here, and got involved with the rehappening with fellow bums from Wilson.
So how do you begin to frame artistic expression when you're not married to any medium, when you're working in concert with others? How do you even know what you want to express, let alone how to express it?
That's definitely something I've learned over many collaborations, is to always check my expectations as to what the vision is going to be, because you never know what people are bringing to the table and who's going to show up. It could be a totally different crew that is performing than when you initially had started. So a lot of that is being just flexible and creating space for people to show up.
So it's just about showing up, not so much what you do when you show up?
We definitely delegate certain departments. So currently we're working on color theory guard, and there's a whole section that is devoted to ambient radiance and interpreting colors through music.
And this is going to be your rehappening offering, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's getting a lot of folks working together through music, through dance, through banner making. We're making tons of banners, and costume, wearable art.
So is Swannatopia, is the nucleus of it Warren Wilson art graduates and students?
Not anymore, but I would say in the beginning, that's where it started for me. My partner and I rented a studio in Swannanoa after we left West Asheville because rent prices were a little too high, and we had acquired so much stuff we needed studio space. And so I found a Craigslist gym, and we moved all of our art making stuff there, shared it with 4 other folks, and we've had it for 5 years now. And it began as shared studio space where we would do the rehappening and bring other folks in, and it would be kind of our headquarters and hub of storing stuff, because most of our installations are heavy on found objects and trash. I learned a new word this morning called bricolage. Yeah, bricolage.
What is that?
It's making things out of what you have. And so
that must stem from bric-a-brac.
Bric-a-brac, yeah, maybe.
So anyway, so you found this gym, or this former gym that you holed up in, and others. And how did other people not from here gravitate to your work and become part of this soup of Swannatopia?
Before we moved from West Asheville, we were doing group art shows through the Asheville Arts Council and pulling local artists together through themes and topics, one of them being a color-related exhibition called CMYK, where people were just playing with colors and how they change, or seeing paintings in different lights, or interpreting music. It was the early stages of this project, I would say. After we moved to Swannanoa, right before the pandemic, our landlord had this space that he was turning over, and he let us use it for a art show. The next month, I guess the pandemic, we went into lockdown. And so all of our energy was then stored inside of Swannatopia, and we were just making stuff for 2 or 3 years, and then began, after things opened up a little bit, Experimental Art Club, which is a branch of Swannatopia where we come up with themes to make stuff for fun.
Yeah, is Experimental Art Club really the hub of creativity, that whatever we see come out of Swannatopia, does it emerge from Experimental Art Club?
Yes, I would say.
Okay,
and
so-
that's always like a floating cast. People will come in and be part of art club, and then, gravitate towards something else, and then come back later. It kind of is a lifelong membership to Swannatopia.
Once you're in, you can never
art
get
club.
out.
Exactly.
So describe the range of projects that you've produced. I know there was a zine of some kind. So describe the range.
We are getting into publishing. We recently have been making more zines, and Color Theory Guard involves a zine for this upcoming rehappening. We have pottery happening. That was one of the first art clubs we hosted, was making chia pets and planters, because we also are very into plants and agriculture and farming. So there's like a thread of art club going with the seasons that we're in.
I know there's a multimedia aspect. Describe the range of multimedia expressions and projects you've done.
There's been a lot of experimental videos, a lot of music video content that we film within our installations. We have worked with Drop of Sun Studios quite a bit, and bringing community together in their residency space, which is called Residency 821.
So you have all these different projects. Is it where one of your members, your lifelong can't escape members, proposes, I want to do this, and then it's a matter of whether other people want to hop on board too? Is that how things happen?
Yes, I would say so. We are very bad at telling people what to do, but we will have an idea, a vision that we're shooting for.
How has Swannatopia evolved since founding of the name Swannatopia in terms of membership, the artists who are part of it, the projects that come out of it? What's evolved?
We definitely have more people, that's for sure.
How many people have come through the Swannatopia tunnel?
I would say over 50,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it's all multi-generational. So some of our main contributors are maybe 7 years old.
7 years old,
Yes.
the main contributors. Wow. And multi-generational. So aside from the ever-growing membership, has the ethos evolved at all?
I would say we've been simplifying, and just our tagline is make stuff for fun, and creating opportunities for people to gather, even if it's hard to find the space to. So we've definitely hosted many an event that are very crowded in a very small room. So
This gym, this former gym,
Yes.
that's really the hub still of Swannatopia.
it's one of the headquarters, but we have thrown events at other places.
Other than rehappening, which happens in the spring, is there anything else, or do projects just happen when people want to make them and bring them forward?
We definitely have a elusive calendar sort of forming, and we've gotten smarter about planning our year's events, in that as we begin the year, we know what's happening at the end of the year, so that we can start making things that are relevant throughout and can be reused, because storage is hard to find.
You're mentioning things that can be reused. Some things I imagine are, the multimedia things or the things that are online are temporary things. Is there a movement to move away from things that have objects that, what are we going to do with this now? Does that come into play at all?
Yeah, we have a giant tree sitting in our studio right now that's taking up a lot of space, and at least 4 kaleidoscopes that are like human-sized.
So where does funding, or is funding even an element for Swannatopia? Does money come into play at all?
No, not really. We have lab fees, or I guess you could call it that, but sort of a suggested donation that we buy materials from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not a nonprofit. You have no intention of becoming a nonprofit, right?
Very much off the grid. Yeah.
Right. So is this something that is going to be hard to maintain, that off the grid, fly by the seat of our pants, but have a year of calendar we're following? What's the tenuous balance here? Or is it tenuous to maintain that, hey, we're a very, to use your word, off the grid organization with no formalized structure? Is that getting harder to keep that?
Part of it being off the grid and about gathering and about creative people sharing things is what draws people to it. And it feels really good to do without having money get involved. It's like an accessibility. Like, we just want for people to make stuff. We definitely have gotten gigs. I did a bunch of community the community outreach for exhibitions at Black Mountain College Museum, where I was like using Swannatopia to pull in artists, and I was getting funding through the museum to then share with others.
Nobody's names are on projects. It's just, this is Swannatopia. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, I didn't even know your name until you wrote back from my initial outreach. So it seems like that's very intentional to keep a sort of anonymity. Am I correct in that?
Yes. Just because there are so many people that make it all happen, we like to give credit when we're intentionally doing that. Otherwise, it's a lot of us. It's a team.
So what else are we going to see at Rehappening through Color Theory Guard?
It's a performance. It is a prismatic playground. We are going to introduce a new color every hour and interpret that color through sound and movement and play.
Is it a randomized color that comes up on a Pantone wheel that you spin? How does this come up, and how are you and your colleagues interpreting this through performance?
We will be traveling the color wheel. There will be order, Roy G. Biv style. And our recent call for ambient radiance will put all of the musical submissions in the order that we're traveling the wheel. And when we shift it from a red to an orange, we will come up with a new movement that we do. It'll be like an exercise workout TV program mixed with color guard.
Is it fully improvised, or is it choreographed?
It is choreographed.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you have a choreographer who's part of Swannatopia, where movement arts is their thing they bring?
Yes.
Am I right in that?
That's correct, yes. Very good at ribbon dancing. So.
I want to thank my guests today, Claire Elizabeth Barratt and Madalyn Wofford of the creative collaborative Swannatopia. Our conversations happened at the BB Theater in downtown Asheville, which comes to me courtesy of the Asheville Contemporary Dance Theater and Susan and Giles Collard. If you value the Overlook's place in Asheville's media landscape, please consider joining dozens of others who are supporting the show through my Patreon crowdfunding page. Become a member for as little as $5 a month. Visit patreon.com/The Overlook Podcast. Our First Look newsletter gives you just a handful of daily headlines from around the local media landscape to get you on your morning. We also have a weekly newsletter devoted to all things The Overlook that hits you every Friday. Both are free and available at podavl.com/newsletter. The theme song for The Overlook, Maker's Song, comes to us courtesy of the Asheville duo The Resonant Rogues. The Overlook is a production of Podcast Asheville. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on any social media channel at AVL Overlook. And I'll see you on the next episode of The Overlook with Matt Peiken. Hey everyone, Matt Peiken here from The Overlook, and I'll get back to my conversation in just a moment. But I'm asking you, the listener, yes, you listening this very moment, is The Overlook making a difference in your connection to Asheville? Do you know more about what makes this city tick and where we're struggling? If you had to give up 1 cup of coffee every month to do your part to keep this show going, would you step up? If you answered yes to any of that, and I really hope you did, please join dozens of other listeners by supporting The Overlook with Matt Peiken through my Patreon campaign by giving just $5 a month. Give at higher levels and you'll earn free tickets to my live podcasting events. Your support means the world to me and helps keep this show free for anyone to hear. Go to patreon.com/The Overlook Podcast.